my love to the game. True. It's true. True. It's true.
Welcome, True Crew. I am super duper excited because of three things really. First thing is I'm really excited to have our final guest for season 1 because this is the finale. This is someone that you guys have heard so much about. You just haven't quite met them yet. And this is my partner, Franny.
Hey guys. Hey babe.
This is my babe. So you guys have heard me talk a lot and some more lots about her. So she is going to be our final guest on season 1 as we wrap it up. And then we're going to go into season 2 sometime soon. So hopefully you have already subscribed and you're already following us. And you can, you keep up. You'll be in the know. We are streaming on all the podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio. I mean, literally anything you can think of, you will find Trudentity Unleashed. So this is the first time we're doing it visually. You guys can see me besides my little picture on my icon. Unless you follow me and you know my business, of course. So I am True Poetry. This is Franny. Welcome, True Crew. Those of you who have been following me forever, since like 2017. That's my True Crew. If you want to join True Crew, you can. You just gotta follow and subscribe.
Yes, please do.
Yes. So welcome. Today's episode, we're going to talk about something that requires us to be really vulnerable, probably uncomfortably vulnerable, but that's okay. Also, heads up, our cat babies are around, so you might see them in a shot. Just give them like a virtual rubbing and they'll be good. And you'll see me holding my little notebook because your girl needs to notate. And I need to have references and talking points, or I will talk y'all's ears off for 3 hours. So it's the best way I can like track my time progress because the ADHDer in me will have a hard time, right, babe?
Right.
So yes, so let's get into it. So today we're talking about shame. We're going to talk about some really vulnerable things. Because I have already been on the podcast and been podcasting for over a month now, and I've been life coaching for years, I'm probably going to be more comfortable with being vulnerable. I have asked Franny onto the show at the very last minute, unlike other guests that I've asked to be on the show. So don't put any pressure on my babe to be more vulnerable than she wants to be.
I'm gonna try my best, guys.
So yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you for being on the episode and deciding on vulnerability with me in life and on the show.
Of course.
So we're gonna get into it. The first thing I want to do is define shame in the first place. Like, I want to talk about what shame even is. I'm literally going to just read the definition because I ain't that confident. I'm gonna read the definition so you guys know where we're coming from, the foundation of this episode. I'm gonna give you some little examples and things like that, and then we are gonna talk through our own personal experiences with shame, individually, as a couple, as individuals in this relationship, and all the things. So the first thing I'm gonna do is define shame. So in psychology, as I did some research, in psychology, shame is a deep emotional state where you feel fundamentally flawed, which is kind of sad, or even unworthy. So you'll feel flawed or unworthy. It's more than guilt, and it involves a strong sense of being inherently bad. Shame can affect your self-esteem, your mental well-being, and it usually comes from some internalized negative judgments about yourself. And I personally can relate. I can definitely relate to that. What about you, babe?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we both have experienced some shame in lots of ways. I also want to talk about, because I think shame is, if you've heard my last episode, we talked about confidence, and it really helped me to literally define the word confidence. Sometimes it just starts with a simple definition of a word. So that's why I'm starting with the definition here this time, because we probably use it and throw it around without knowing what it really means. And I want to compare it to some other words that we might easily confuse this word shame with, you know?
Yeah.
Some of those things are like guilt, right? Guilt feels very, I think even you can feel guilt and shame at the same time. So I think because of that, you might confuse the two. So I'm gonna break this down for you. Guilt is actually a specific behavior or action, and it comes from a sense of having done something wrong, naturally or ethically, and it leads to the desire to correct it or make amends after you've done the thing. Does that make sense?
It does.
And then, so if we were to summarize that into a sentence, it would be like, I did something bad. That's more like guilt. I did something bad. I need to fix it. I need to correct it. I need to apologize.
Yeah.
You know, that's more like guilt. If that thing that eats you up inside and you feel it right here in this chakra, and you'd be like, ugh, yeah, that's guilt. Yeah, you've had guilt before?
Definitely.
Where shame, on the other hand, is more focused on more of a general sense. So it's more general and it's directed at self. So it can be sourced from the belief of being inherently bad, like I mentioned before, and unworthy as a person. So the person feels unworthy. And some of the things that happens when we're feeling shame are we might experience avoidance, we might experience hiding or withdrawing from other people, maybe even. So if I were to summarize shame into one sentence, instead of it being, I've done something bad, it would be more like, I am bad. I am bad. The person is bad. So I wanted to explain that to you guys because I have felt both. Honestly, I felt guilt, but I have felt way more shame than I have felt guilt.
Yeah.
If you haven't, big up to you. That's a blessing. I think a lot of us, maybe even most of us, have felt shame and guilt, maybe. Some other emotions that you might confuse with shame would be maybe anger, sadness, fear, even, right? Where anger would be something that's directed more externally. Sadness would be from loss or disappointment. And then the other one, fear, right? That is when you are perceiving some sort of danger or threat to yourself. So very different things, but easily confused with shame and guilt. They all kind of fall under this negative, I ain't feeling it space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I get it. I get why they're easily confused. I might have used them interchangeably before. I ain't gonna lie. So I'm gonna talk about, I guess what we can get into is, let's just dive right into the vulnerability, I guess. I'm gonna talk about some of the sources of shame for me and where, and probably even a little bit of why I've experienced some of that shame. So for me, it came from a few things, more than one thing. And I think that's common, that you can experience shame and from more than one thing and in more than one area. For me, it was probably from some early experiences, early exposure even, to some sexual oriented things, you know, more things that are of a sexual nature. Early exposure to that, I think, is a source of shame for me. It made me feel unworthy, made me feel a little broken as a child, and growing into teenager and adulthood. There was a lot of that lingered for quite some time, and maybe even still. I think maybe even still, Babe and I have had to have some tough, weird conversations I didn't expect to be having around some of this. I also experienced some daddy issues. I have a biological father who's no longer with us, and then I also have my stepfather, who I often just refer to as my dad. Mostly because he's been around in my life my whole life. And even with him, sorry Dad if you're watching this, if you feel like I'm putting you on the spot, but I just gotta be honest. And he knows, we've already talked through this. Me and my dad have healed from this already, but I just want to put it out there for the sake of this episode. My dad and I had what I perceive to be an estranged relationship, even living under the same household since I was 2. Not quite sure why I felt that way. It could have been for many reasons. I just remember as a kid feeling like, I'm not his actual daughter, I'm not his biological daughter, so maybe he doesn't love me as much. And that might have come from the experience I had with my biological dad, who I didn't really know very well. I knew who he was, but I didn't really spend a lot of time with him. And his relationship with my mother was whatever that was. You know what I mean? So I think overall the combination of those 2 experiences of men has created this void I had in terms of fatherhood. You know, my experience of fatherhood. But my grandpa was lit. My grandpa was there, still is. He was a little mean, but he's still there. So, you know, daddy issues I think is a thing for me. And then lastly, my queerness. Clearly, I'm in a queer relationship. Been queer. And as a child, I knew that I was queer. I may not have known what to call it or, you know, what it was, but I was feeling it. And if you don't know my story, I did talk about it on one of the episodes this season. So check that out. You'll hear more about my story. You might even get a part 2 sometime soon. And we're gonna go over some beats. So that's my things. Daddy issues, queerness, early exposure to sex, shame. Feeling the shame, okay? So baby, what do you think? Like what are some sources for you that you experience of shame?
I mean, what I can think of, definitely my sexuality was a big one, because I was someone who knew I was queer at a very young age. I remember having a crush on a girl in the 1st grade, and I knew that I wasn't able to express that I should keep it to myself, that it was frowned upon. I had no idea how I knew that at 5 years old, but I did.
Yeah.
And I had to keep it inside and suppress that. And that crushed me, because I'm really, you know, I may be reserved, but I'm very expressive at the same time. So having to keep that inside, it crushed me. So I definitely had a lot of shame around that in my early childhood, all the way up into my teens and early 20s, when I finally came out and started to feel a little bit better about shame and having shame around that.
Yeah, good. I mean, and same. My journey was very similar in terms of my sexuality. It's one that I think is very common, especially to my listeners. I know y'all are part of the community, a lot of you. Even if you aren't, my goal is to just spread love for people in and out of the community and awareness. So if you aren't queer, welcome. Thanks for the support. And also, I hope that you learned something from our experience and understanding that it ain't easy, and it does come with a lot of shame. That doesn't even have to be. It doesn't even have to be. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I know that's tough. Thank you for being vulnerable, baby.
Definitely.
But you mentioned something. You mentioned you don't know where it came from. I think if I had to guess at it, because I think we felt that way when we were those ages, and now as an adult, having adult experiences, able to look in retrospect and really evaluate my life, I'd say maybe society. I think maybe society might have been why we felt that shame. What else would have caused us to think we were wrong in existing? You know, what were we basing that off of? What standard did that come from?
Yeah, maybe the movies I've watched, you know, the Disney, the man and the woman. And could have been that, because I was very young.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say I was exposed to society, but maybe just from what I've seen from, you know, like Aladdin and Princess Jasmine. You know, that was one of my favorite movies as a kid. but I understood that it was like the man and the woman, you know.
Yeah.
And I although I felt like a little boy and that appearance of a, you know, I'm still a woman, you know.
Yeah. Yep. I get that. And you hit it like right on the nail. In terms of society, I think we experience that through representation. Movies we're watching, maybe even, you know, what we're seeing on TV. Kids watch tons of TV. But yeah, so I'm thinking maybe society, we experience society as a kid. We're not out in the world for real, so we're experiencing it through what? We're experiencing that through our parents, our family members. That's our whole world when we're kids. What we're seeing on TV, the games that we're playing, any exposure that we have to representations of society, I think forms that in us. And so if we're not seeing the representation of queerness, then it's gotta be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Nobody else is feeling this but me, you know? So why am I feeling like this? What's wrong with me?
Exactly.
I'm bad, right? Like the definition said.
Yeah, I must be,
I must be, something must be wrong with me. And like imagine like what that kid feels like. What does baby Franny feel like? What does, you've heard me on previous episodes, what does Three is the name of my inner child. What does she feel like when she's feeling alone like that? So I would say that society had a huge impact on shame for me. What about for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Even though we weren't out in the world, we were exposed to the world, just in different ways. So, thank you for sharing that with me. Yeah, I think that's part of the influence that we feel. And it's so interesting because when I'm thinking about having conversations with family members or other straight people who are less aware, who have less of an awareness of queerness, I hear a lot of fear around seeing that representation or exposing their children to that kind of representation. And that feels very discriminatory.
It does.
It seems to come from a perspective that assumes straightness.
Yeah, and it makes me feel bad, like I can't be myself, you know?
Right. Like if I don't fit into this idea of straightness, if I don't fit into this idea that I'm supposed to be dreaming of getting married and this dress that I'm gonna wear and having kids, something's wrong with me. And that's trash.
Very much so.
Because what if that's not even my vibe? Like, who are you to tell me what my vibe is before I get here? I completely understand the non-binary community because that's kind of their, I feel like that's part of their message. You know, that like, what blue and pink, what even? Like, what even is that? Like, what are you programming me to think and feel? Can we chill on the programming a bit? You know, like that's the message to me, and I love it. I'm in full support of that because I'm an advocate. Like, let's chill on the programming a bit because now I've got to spend like freaking 90% of my adulthood deprogramming, like unlearning layers and layers and years of stuff. You already have to do that as an adult. But then when you've got to do that on top of unraveling traumas and shame, it's just too much work.
Yeah.
It's too much work for me. It is too much work for me. I think we kind of covered my next point, which was how does that carry into adulthood? If I'm just imagining me as a kid, I mean, we don't lose our inner child. They're still there. You know, they're always going to be there.
Yeah.
So how have I developed from that person? How has the compilation of those experiences led me to this point right now? I'm talking to y'all about it. I'm now an advocate against it. So I'd say it shows up in my adulthood very much like that. And I'm now able to experience love and light through a queer relationship with my queer partner. You know, what about for you?
Yeah, I mean, same here, you know. I'm still dealing with things that happened in my past, but I'm in a better place now, you know. So my shame has definitely dissipated some as far as my sexuality and just enjoying my partner and being present and, you know, just living freely and being my true, authentic self.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, baby. I'm proud of you.
Me? Thank you. So yeah, for me, I've also noticed some of the negative effects. Like I just spoke on some great things, right? Like I'm now powerful and bold and beautiful.
Yeah.
Very much true, right? But also there's some negative things to it. I think I developed some fear of abandonment. I ain't gonna lie to you, I'm gonna be real about it. When baby walks out the door to go to work, I'm like, no! No, don't leave me!
She does.
I mean, babe has to literally, like, it takes her 30 minutes to get out the door. Because I'm like, no! Like, and then as soon as she shuts the door, I'm like, baby. It's a mess. I'm way too attached. I'm not even gonna lie. And baby's not that attached, okay? That is very much a me thing. I'm like, no, everybody stay. No, I'm tired of people leaving. I'm tired of feeling insecure and not safe. I think that's really where it comes from. So I just want to feel safe. And she does a really good job at that, don't get me wrong. It's just, I got some lingering things from childhood, and that was the question.
Yeah.
I've also noticed, previous to now, I've had some issues with intimacy, and maybe even now as well. I've had some things with intimacy because I experience intimacy more transactional than meaningful, and so I think that was how I continued to experience intimacy. I don't know if no offense to any of my exes or previous partners, but I'm just feeling like, alright, that's not all the way true. I've had like one or two where I feel like I experienced true intimacy with, but this intimacy I experienced with this partner, Franny, is way different than anything I've ever experienced, and mostly because it is not rooted in sexuality at all. I think that just improves and enhances our sexual experience, but our intimacy just comes from like her looking me in my eye. Like it just comes from like holding my hand for me. You know, things that were just like, oh baby. Thank you. Things that were just like, you can hold my hand because you're taking me out to dinner, like I guess. Like it was once like that. Now I'm like, I'm feeling butterflies. Like I love her. It's coming from love. And that's different. I wasn't always open to experiencing love at this capacity, for sure. And Franny just comes that way. They just come with intimacy. And I have been always someone who avoided emotions for a long time. And so now I feel like even when I want to, it usually shows up when I'm scared. Even when I want to here in this relationship, because I do experience a lot of fear, like I mentioned, abandonment and things like that, and also because it's so real. Even when I experience that here, I have to check myself. And also, Franny just freaking forces it on me naturally. I'm just kidding. She doesn't force anything on me. It's just because of who she is. It immediately knocks my walls down. Maybe down. Yes. But yes, it's very much that, you know, so I'm feeling a lot of that in this relationship, and I'm so grateful. I don't want to give all the power to Babe, but I am thankful for her. I think also I had to bloom and blossom into the person that I am to even be able to receive this level of intimacy. And I had to grow. I had to grow through my shame.
Yeah.
I had to go through that shame. And I also feel like something else that was disarming, which is what I was trying to say. Something else that has been disarming, and not just with Franny, but the one or two other partners I've mentioned. And maybe even not even just, I can't even say it was all romantic relationships. I have mentioned, I don't know if I've mentioned my best friend, Kevin, that transitioned a couple years ago. That was not a romantic relationship by any means, but it was probably the most intimate relationship I have ever had, more than a romantic one I had ever had. And I think it was because I just felt seen. I felt like someone saw me beyond, ooh, I might get a little emotional. But someone saw me beyond my physical appearance. I mean, your girl is cute. Don't get me twisted. But I don't want that to be the only focus, you know, or what I can provide, or my body, or my achievements. Like, this person just saw me because I existed. Like, spirit to spirit. That was disarming significantly. And baby, you do the same thing. You know, there's been a lot of trials and tribulations we've had, and I've been like, is she gonna leave now? You know? And never! And then she even looks at me like, are you crazy? Why do you think I'm leaving? Like, what is that about? I've talked about that on a podcast before too. But yeah, I think that helped me with intimacy. It allowed me to be more vulnerable to receive intimacy, and that's some of the things I've experienced to overcome shame.
To overcome shame, I mean, it definitely took some time to really just feel comfortable in my sexuality. One thing I didn't speak on earlier was I also felt shame around just growing up in poverty, being poor, humble beginnings. Even though my parents worked really hard, they were, lower class working parents, and we never really went without, but there were moments where I did feel like I wanted more, and I did feel shame around that,
Yeah.
So it took some time to really overcome those feelings and just to decide to just, hey, let's work really hard to be better, to have more, to feel a little more financially stable and free. Which I'm still also working on, but I'm in a good space. I'm pretty comfortable. I don't feel as much shame as I once did growing up around that.
Yeah, I mean, I ain't mad. I'm very happy about that overcoming, because I reap some of those benefits. Yeah. I'm just saying, I'm proud. I'm glad that that's something that you were able to work through.
Yeah.
How do you think it has impacted your mental health, carrying that shame?
It definitely impacts your mental health, Sometimes you do things you're not proud of, In the past, I was on my by any means, and I was doing some things that I shouldn't have been doing, and I got caught up, and I hurt some people, and, I felt I had guilt, I had a lot of guilt around that.
Yeah.
And I had a guilty conscience as well, and I couldn't sleep until I just came clean and decided, you know what, it's not worth it, I want to go about elevating my life in a positive way.
Yeah.
And that's why I believe people can change, because I've made mistakes and I've made the choice to not be that person anymore, and just to, obtain my success in a more positive way. And now I just refuse to not do that.
Yeah. Same for me. I've definitely experienced years of depression, I think. A lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. I still experience anxiety. And let me be clear, that depression that I had once experienced is only like a trigger away. Okay? It could, and if you relate to that, I mean, comment below, or share your experiences with us. But I think that's very common. It is not something that just goes away. Mm-hmm. And I think when you experience shame in general, it can easily be triggered. And so I don't think it's easy to, it's not something to suppress. It's something you learn to manage, like Franny was saying, and you learn to live with it, and you learn these alternative ways to achieve the same thing, to achieve what you once experienced that you don't want to anymore. But it doesn't mean the feelings go away. You might still feel those feels sometimes. Like,
definitely. Sometimes
I might say something in a conversation to Babe, and she's like, that was cringe,
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I'll be like, babe, I want to go on a date here, I'm going to go here, I want to go here, and I want to go here. And they would be like, you talking to me about a lot of financial stuff. And it might be making me want to go outside and do whatever it takes. You know what I mean? But I want to do what I know is right for me to do, and what is right for us and our future to do. And I appreciate her for reeling it back in like that, because I know I can just go on. I'm in the air and the sky always. I'm always dreaming. I'm like, let's do this, let's do that. I'm gonna do everything. So I'm very happy that Franny could be my anchor sometimes. So yeah, I think that's a big deal, that it has a mental impact. you know, just on your health. For me, it was depression, anxiety, maybe even contributed to the ADHD I experienced. Maybe, you know. So I wouldn't be surprised. I did do some research, and some of the things I found that are common impacts on mental health are low self-esteem, stress, feelings of isolation, avoidant behavior, and a stunted personal growth.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, that broke it down better than I did. So, yeah. Do you think it's important to talk about shame?
I think so. I think it'll help people who are feeling shame at the moment to know that it's I don't want to say normal, but it's like everyone experiences it.
Yeah.
And you can overcome it, you know?
Yeah.
And you need to hear that.
1000% agree. I couldn't have said it better. I think the same thing. I think it's important to talk about anything that we don't talk about. I think that's so important. Why are we doing that? Why? Because now you've got these adults out here in the world who can't communicate.
Yeah. I've learned a lot from you with that. So
Really?
Definitely.
Hey. We also have a therapist.
Yes, we do.
We have a couple therapists. Baby's got her own therapist. I am on the search for my own, but I've always had my own therapist. I'm just on a break right now. But therapy is the way I'm always going to advocate. It's very beneficial to have in your life. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But I think that it's very easy to experience any of these things that we're talking about. And there are hotlines you guys can call if you're experiencing any of that. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm open. I'm always open to talk. I'm not like a licensed professional, anything, but I could be a friend.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to be heard. You know, like sometimes you just want to get it out. I think it's important. I think it's important to even just talk. Sometimes the healing comes from just talking about it. I remember when I was coming through my shame and especially with the early exposure I was telling you guys about. One of the things I vowed to myself to do was to just talk about it. Start talking about it. Like just start saying stuff out loud. Yeah. Because it was taking up so much space, so much room in my mind and my heart and my body. I started to feel suffocated. Like I couldn't breathe. Like I just needed to get it out of my freaking body, you know? And literally, it didn't even matter who I was saying it to. That part didn't even matter. But the moment I started doing that, I started healing. And who knew something like that? You'd think that you gotta go to therapy for 6 years to become better and blah, 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 which is talking about it. But in my head, I guess I thought it was something that would require so much more out of me. But all I did was say like, yeah, when I was little, I went through this. And I was like, oh, did I just say that? You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, did I just say it out loud? And it felt so good.
It does. It's a sense of relief.
Yeah.
It's release, right?
Yes. Exactly. It's release. It's release. I think that's so important. So talk about it. Talk about your stuff. Talk about shame. Talk about shame. And just have like open dialogues about it. If you're feeling, and I'm not going to push anybody to do anything that you're not comfortable with doing. I think you should check in with yourself. I think eventually you become more comfortable with being vulnerable, and you'll be more comfortable with creating safe spaces as opposed to waiting for someone to create it for you. I think you start to develop into that as well, and I think that takes a long time. I just think I spent a lot of time and a lot of professional help doing that, so I think I'm a little good at it, but I don't expect it for everybody.
Yeah, and even now I'm learning, even as my adult self is learning the benefits of releasing, because I'm the type of person I would internalize a lot of things and keep it inside. And then it really does build up until you literally explode your volcano, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's one of the best things you can do, and you do need to get in the habit of doing it.
Yes,
you know?
The habit. Because I think it's like not just one time, and then you're like, I'm free.
Right.
You gotta keep doing that thing. You gotta keep sitting in that discomfort.
Yeah.
Keep sitting in that discomfort until it's no longer uncomfortable. And I ain't gonna lie to you, sometimes it still very much is. The things that I'm not comfortable talking about, I'm not gonna lie and act like they are just like, I'm super comfortable talking about them now. I still feel like something, like, and maybe it's a trigger to shame that I still feel, but I'm now more accustomed to the habit of doing it, especially because I'm doing it to help someone else feel seen and to release. That exchange has become so important and imperative in my life. It helps me to grow, to receive, and to give whatever I can.
Yeah.
Yep. So some of the, I'm going to talk briefly about some negative coping mechanisms to dealing with shame. So some of the negative ones, including avoidance, are self-destruction, some substance abuse, addictive behavior to anything, right? Because I think sometimes we automatically go to substance abuse, but in my opinion, you can be addicted to anything. You could be addicted to eating.
Yep.
You could be addicted to TV.
Yep.
You could be addicted to working out.
Yep.
You could be addicted to anything. Money, spending it, gaining it, achievements.
Yeah.
Shoot, I'm calling myself out right now. Those are things I've learned are really pretty much they fall under the umbrella of avoidance. If I don't gotta think about it,
yeah,
I'm good. Also, I've learned that when I'm doing these negative coping mechanisms, it feels like I have control where I might have felt like I didn't before. And that makes me feel like a temporary sense of, I'm better, I'm getting better, you know, but it's very temporary. Every time I've done something like that, I felt the guilt and the shame right after, like, dang it, I did not have to do that. Like,
so
if I had just waited it out a little bit, if I had just stuck to my guns just a little bit, if I had just done this one little thing differently, maybe I wouldn't have to be sitting in this stupor, you know, now, because I've done something as a negative coping mechanism. What's your experience? Do you relate to any of these?
Absolutely. I mean, if I look back, I was overweight as a child, and eating made me feel good. So I would eat, and I was overweight, and you know, spending money would make me feel good as well. So I do whatever I can to get my hands on some money, you know, just to get that gratification of a purchase, you know, even if it was purchasing food, which was a high to get high on eating food, you know? So it was like a high on a high, you know?
Yeah, damn,
Yeah. You know? So I can definitely relate there.
Yeah. Speaking of, Baby's very health conscious. Always getting our diet together. We have started a new diet. We're both vegetarian, vegan. And we have, even within that, we still weren't eating great, but we are now like being very, well, I'm gonna say me, I'm gonna speak for myself because Franny's always been eating better than me. But yeah, I've been more conscious lately. We've started to walk. We wake up at 5 a.m. every weekday and we take a walk for 30 to 40 minutes. And just to get our metabolism going, to get our heart rate up, and it really just jumpstarts our day. Baby also has to work at 6 a.m., but
yeah.
you know, it's really been very beneficial. You see these calves? Stop playing with me. Look at this thigh. We've been walking.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, being in a fairly new relationship, I've even packed on some pounds, just having a good time. You know, going out on dates and eating out more, and you know, I can only blame myself for that, you know, but I was having a good time. I was just like enjoying the moment, but now it's back to like, okay, it's time to get disciplined again and just be more aware, you know. We don't need to be stick figures or anything like that.
Because I like my friends.
But we want to look good in our clothes, and you know, we want to feel good and have energy, and you know, just stay proactive. You know, as you get older, you want to just stay on top of it while you have your health, you know.
And so that really leads me into the next thing I researched, which are positive coping mechanisms. So I'm gonna flip my little page so I can tell you a little bit about those. But before I do, there are two other ones that I want to mention, like perfectionism and isolation. Perfectionism is one that definitely haunted me. I'm gonna say haunts me because I still struggle with perfectionism. And my own personal life and experience, even as an artist, even with this podcast, you know, everything. When I'm working for somebody else, I gotta be the top of everything. I gotta be the best of everything. With the podcast, I'm like, I can't put it out if I don't have this and this and this and this ready. And when it's like, girl, put that thing out. You know, just procrastinating because I'm wanting something to be perfect. But what even is perfect? What even is that? I don't know. Catch me on another episode because I'll go in on it. But
yeah, you know what? That's a great topic for another episode. Actually.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfectionism.
Yeah, it's something that'll rule your whole life and the ground.
Absolutely.
But some healthy coping mechanisms or healthy alternatives. I don't want to call them coping mechanisms, but alternatives, healthy ways to go about what you might have once done to cope are therapy. Therapy is one of them. Like we mentioned, we have a couple of therapists. Franny also, in addition to our couples therapist, has her own individual therapist. I'm on the market for mine. And I also just learned something cool. Okay, so if y'all know, if you are a true crew, you know your girl's a nerd, and I love me some psychology, okay? So I was doing some research, and I found, I don't even remember what, I don't remember what sent me down this hyper-focus. I don't remember. Something Franny and I were doing, it might have even been an argument or something. Maybe I woke up feeling something. I truly don't know. At any moment, I could go down a rabbit hole of research. So I was doing that, and I found EDMR. EDMR. It's something I'm not going to go into detail about because it's a very thorough practice for therapy. But I would recommend it especially if you experience trauma or anything that could be considered traumatic or anything. Really, look it up. EDMR is dope. Ask your therapist. I'm excited because I'm going to ask my therapist if I can EDMR me. I'm trying to get that thing done. But also self-compassion, mindfulness, supportive relationships, platonic and romantic. I think heavy on the platonic. Because I think even in your romantic relationship, having that platonic aspect to it is very beneficial. Franny and I were talking about that the other day. Like, yes, we're partners, love you to death. You know, but also, like, can we be friends? We should be friends because when we're having those tough conversations, I want you to receive me as friend. So there's no pressure. There's no added pressure to be perfect for me. You know what I mean? Like, let's just be individuals in this moment so that you can feel understood and I can feel understood. I think it's so important for that kind of support. And then also self-care and self-growth activities, including meditation, working out, journaling, reading, any type of artistic expression, including fashion. It's a thing. Doing something in nature and boundaries. Put a pin in boundaries. Yeah. Put a pin in boundaries because I have a boundaries boot camp coming out soon. And tune in because we're going to talk about it more in season 2. So I'm excited. But yes, these are some things that you can do as healthy alternatives to overcoming shame. Tell me a little bit about your experience with getting professional help and how you think that's benefited you.
Honestly, there was a point where I'm pro therapy, but I didn't know how I could benefit from therapy, so I didn't necessarily pursue it. But just being in a relationship with True, she's very pro therapy, and she has a therapist, and us just doing some speaking on our childhood and things. She told me that I could benefit from one, and I gave it some thought, and I decided to go ahead and join a program through that my job offered. And I met my therapist, and my therapist is amazing. She's actually from our hometown as well, which is weird. Philly. Yeah. But it felt like it was meant to be, and just speaking with her has been, you just feel a sense of relief after a therapy session, or you feel proud as well that you've accomplished something like that's going to benefit your mental health.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy those sessions, and I really enjoy our therapy sessions together, our couples therapy. I feel like it actually brings us closer to one another immediately. Like after a session, I just feel like, cuddly.
Like,
and,
let me put my leg right here.
like we're onto something, and we're on the same page, and we're on the same path, and we're working toward our, combined goals together, and it just feels really, really good. And I wasn't always someone who thought that I'd be in therapy,
Yeah.
So I just ask you to be open to it, and you just never know. You never know how it could benefit you.
You never know. Yeah. I love our therapy sessions. I think baby really loves them more than me. But I love how she feels about it, and it makes me feel cuddly after. And I love seeing how excited you are after your individual sessions with your therapist. She's ready to talk to me about what she learned. Like, hey, this is what my session was about. This is what I learned about myself. And I love seeing that. It just makes me really excited to be in her corner while she's journeying. And it was the same for me. I'd be like, man, let me tell you about this session. You know what I mean? Let me tell you about what I learned. So I agree. I'm not even going to tell you how it impacts me because it's literally the same way. Same exact way. And something, I will say this. There is something that Franny has an experience that I have, which is group therapy. I'm not going to tell you guys what to do. I am just going to tell you that I think I've benefited. I think group therapy had more of an impact on me than individual therapy at first. Now that I've had the experience of group therapy, I think individual therapy is beneficial to me. I think that's probably why you like the couples therapy as well. Something about relating to people in that vulnerability feels really good. Like feeling like you're not alone while you're feeling so vulnerable is freaking enlightening. So that was my experience with group therapy. I was like, whoa, this whole time, I thought it was just me. I'm in this room with all these people and they all have like darn near the same experience as me, or if not the same experience itself, the same feelings about whatever they experienced that I had about what I experienced. And I think that's so important to overcome that isolation that you might feel, and just feeling alienated. It really helps with that. So group therapy is also really good, and it helped me it still helps me with shame. That's why I talk to people. That's why we gotta talk to people.
It definitely helps you feel less shame because you can relate. You realize that you're not the only one. Mm-hmm. You're not alone.
Yep. Exactly. And forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself allows you to forgive whoever else you need to forgive. I think that especially regarding shame, because remember, shame is I'm a bad person. So what are we? I think we should forgive ourselves for incriminating ourselves for things that may have happened that were out of our control.
Yeah.
That cause us shame. We didn't control society's norms. It was just happening to us. And so we felt shame around that. We can forgive ourselves for feeling the shame, maybe, around that. We can forgive ourselves for putting ourselves down. We can forgive ourselves for not being gentle to ourselves just because someone else wasn't. There's a lot of things that I think we can forgive ourselves about. And I'm not going to tell you how to go about that. For you, I think that is a very private and personal journey. I do recommend it. I will share with you what I did. I wrote a forgiveness letter to myself. And I just thought, I didn't realize how much I wanted to forgive myself for. I set a timer for 25 minutes and it wasn't long enough. I was like, whoa, I was holding a lot of stuff in. And I just did that like a month ago, y'all. So don't think of me as on any type of pedestal, okay? Because I just did that a month ago and didn't realize how much I was holding on to about myself. I think I have talked previously on another episode about my relationship with Howard, who is another one of my parts for IFS. And I had to forgive myself for treating her that way, which is me in my 20s, by the way. Howard is me in my 20s. That's just the name I gave that phase of my life. I had to forgive myself for shaming myself for my experiences in my 20s, because a lot of that was a reaction to. You know what I mean? Even just recently in the last 3 years, while grieving the transition of Kevin, who I was telling you about in the beginning of this episode, I had to forgive myself for showing up how I show up now, you know, in this relationship, in life in general, because I'm grieving, you know, and I haven't had a moment to sit still and process. So maybe I was moving in numbness. Maybe I was just experiencing numbness while going through life and just doing.
Yeah.
Until now. You know what I mean? So, man, that list of forgiveness that you might have for yourself, give yourself some time. Set a timer for like 30 minutes. And then just jot it down. I forgive myself for this. I forgive myself for that. And see what comes out. I think you should do it.
I think it's a great idea.
We want y'all help on something because we're not going to do this for you, but we're really interested to see how you think we can redefine societal norms, especially around shame. What do you think we can do as a community, as a people, as humans, as other people who have experienced shame, people who have overcome shame? What are your ideas around redefining those societal norms?
Yeah, I'd like to know as well.
You have any ideas?
I mean, I think we touched on just being more open, right?
Yeah.
Being more open and speaking on it is definitely a start.
Yeah.
You know, I think podcasts though. You know, having someone who
Trudentity Unleashed.
maybe you're not in a position to speak on it, but listening to someone who is may inspire you as well as help you. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Have you, and this is the last thing, and then we'll wrap up. Have you experienced or witnessed anyone go through the transformation from shame to healing? I don't know if we're ever fully healed.
Yeah. I think our relationship, you know, I've watched you grow, and I've watched you just go from feeling, you know, on edge to a little more comfortable and more safe, and just getting back into who you truly are with being a creative, you know.
Yeah. She warms my heart, guys. I feel the same way. I mean, your girl has transformed lately, but also my baby. Yeah, I agree. Same. You're one of the people. I've witnessed many people go through this transformation from shame to healing. Who you were at the beginning of our relationship is not far from who you are now, but I can see these progressions, these micro progressions that are leading up to this macro experience I'm having with you. And I appreciate you for journeying with me and yourself. Journeying with yourself so that you can journey with me.
Yeah.
I'm very appreciative for our experience in that way. And I also feel like anybody that I meet or have any type of relationship with, even if it's brief, romantic, platonic, mentorship, my goal is to be supportive on any part of your journey that you're in. So I've seen lots of transformations just because of that, because I show up like a support system. I show up like, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
Who do I need to be to help you along your journey? What needs to happen? And then give me that same energy in return. Because this ain't no one-way street, okay?
Right.
But so I've seen a lot of transformations in that regard. Hopefully I get to see and hear about some of yours as our following grows. And I become more of your girl True.
Yeah.
And Trudentity Unleashed expands, because I'm excited. Oh my God. So yes, thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this very long, non-ADHD friendly episode.
Hopefully we kept you engaged and interested, and you know, you wanted to hear more and hear about what we had to say.
Yes, please tune in every Tuesday to Trudentity Unleashed. There is a new episode every Tuesday on any of those platforms like Spotify, like Apple, like Amazon, like iHeartRadio, anywhere you can listen to a motherfrickin' podcast. We're on it every Tuesday. So don't hold me on the time on Tuesdays because I'm on a different time zone than some of y'all, okay? So just look on Tuesday for the episode. But thank you. Subscribe, hit the notification bell or whatever you need to hit so that you can know whenever we release anything. You can buy merch on my site. I'll put more information in the comment section, in the description of this episode so that you guys can know where to go. True Crew, I love you so much.
3 hours later.